Burgess, and Dickerson. Okay. Then on non-voting, I have Jenkins, Summers. Any other non-voting members on the call? Okay. Staff, I've got John and Paige. Is there anyone else on the call that I need to know about?
3 participants are now joining.
Okay. Would everybody mute your phone when you're not talking, please? Okay.
Hey, Ron, this is BJ.
Okay, Mr. Umpang. Okay. And who else just joined?
2 participants are now joining.
Huggins.
Huggins is in. Okay. Who else
Mayor
just
Robin.
joined? Miss Robinson is on. Okay.
Al Coon, Ron.
Pam Baker.
Is now joining.
Okay. If everybody can mute your phone when you're not talking, please. Okay.
This is Pam Baker.
So, and I got Miss Baker. Okay. Okay. I determined we do have a quorum. Voting members, we have Anderson, Leaks, Mood, Gleaton, Huggins, Smith, Morris, and Dickerson on the line. Best I can tell, we're missing. Go ahead.
Burgess.
And Mr. Burgess has joined as well. Is Mr. Howard on the line? Okay. So we have 9 voting board members. Non-voting members, we have Jenkins, Summers, Unthank, Robinson, and Kuhn. And then we have John, Ando, Jernigan, and Baker staff on the call. Okay. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda. Carolyn
I have a
Gleason.
motion from Ms. And I have a motion from Ms. Gleaton, and I have a second from Ms. Dickerson. And just to make things easier, we had a mix-up with some of the minutes the other day and some motions. So what I am going to do is, I'm not going to do it with adopting an agenda, but any sort of a motion that we're making to approve something, I'm going to ask that Paige restate it, and then we'll vote by voice. Or we'll do a roll call vote. So, okay, so I have a motion from Ms. Gleaton, and I have a second from Ms. Dickerson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Andy.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, a potential amendment under the consent calendar. I think there's a set of minutes that's in the packet that's not on the agenda. March 23rd. So I don't know if that just needs to be added as an additional set of minutes to be adopted as part of the consent calendar.
Okay. Ms. Gleaton, do you accept that addition to the agenda?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Ms. Dickerson, do you second the addition of that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Burgess.
Yes, I do have one question. Now, I received a amended agenda that's a little different from the original packet. Is there anything in it that need to be pointed out?
Yes, I'll point that out. We just added an executive session item in relation to expansion of transit services.
Say that again?
We just added an executive session item in relation to expansion of transit services at the request of Mr. Anderson and legal counsel.
Okay. I did have a question about amending the agenda to adopt those minutes. Can we, because that's not on the agenda that was just sent out, can we do that, or do we need to defer that to another meeting, Ms. Baker?
If it's, I'm sorry, you said that the item that was just put on the executive committee agenda?
No,
Executive
the thing Mr. Smith brought up, which was adopting minutes from the March 23rd meeting. It was left off the agenda.
I would probably defer it to the next, that item.
Okay. So, Ms. Gleaton, if you'll, let's go back to, if you don't mind, do you accept removing that not putting that on there after all, and is that all right with you?
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Okay. So your motion is to adopt the agenda as stands, and then
Mr.
Ms.
Chair,
Dickerson,
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll get you in
Mr.
just
Chair?
1 second. Yeah, I'll get you in 1 second, Dr. Morris. Ms. Dickerson, do you accept the second?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Morris, you had a question.
Yes. Now, if we don't include the minutes, can we include, or should we include the brownstone piece? The brownstone piece is a part of the minutes.
This is from the minutes from the 23rd of March. Are those the same minutes you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the April minutes.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
the minutes that are missing are from March 23rd.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the March minutes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Mr.
hold on
Chair.
1 second. So specifically
Okay.
the March 23rd minutes. I heard you, Mr. Burgess. Hold on a second. So specifically the minutes that we're leaving out are the ones from March 23rd because they're not on the written agenda, so we can't add them to the agenda at the last second. Mr. Burgess.
Yes, now those minutes that Andy mentioned, that's our special board meeting minutes. So
Right.
So if we don't accept those minutes, how are we going to discuss it in executive session?
We're not going to discuss those minutes in executive session. We're discussing minutes from the Finance Committee.
All right, well, how about, but see, some more minutes. How about the minutes from the Service Committee?
Those haven't been adopted by the, Finance hasn't adopted theirs, and Service hasn't adopted theirs yet. So those will be presented at the May committee meeting.
See,
Mr. Chair.
something's
hold on
wrong
1 second.
there.
Hold on 1 second. Let's dispense with Mr. Burgess's issue first. Go ahead, Mr. Burgess. What's wrong?
Yeah, because those meetings were on the same day, and the motions were made the same day. How can you discuss one and defer the other? I mean, even the Service Committee is not there, and both of those meetings were on the 8th.
Want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the motions were made at both Finance and Service. Those have been carried forward to today's agenda as agenda item 7B. At the request of Mr. Anderson, we put in executive session to further discuss that matter. So we're following the actions of Finance and Service. However, the board is not adopting Finance and Service Committee's minutes because that's supposed to be adopted by those respective committees, and those will be presented at the May meeting. The only thing we're doing today is just bringing forward the motions that were made at both of those committees.
So if I understand what you're saying,
No,
go ahead, Mr. Burgess.
yeah, no, that's not correct. Those motions and adoption should be presented to the board today, not as to be passed on again. What's the reason for not discussing them?
We are going to discuss them today. That's item 7B.
Yeah, the only thing we're not doing is we can't adopt the big board doesn't adopt the minutes from the meetings for the committees. The committees have to do that at the following meeting.
I think that's the way it's always been done. Like at the beginning of each committee meeting, y'all move to adopt the minutes from the last committee meeting. Is that correct?
Yes. So we wouldn't have adopted the April minutes yet because we won't see them because they will not have been adopted by the committees yet. Now the action items have come forward, but not the minutes. Does that make sense, Ms. Burgess?
Well, we have so many going on at the same time. I just have to defer to whatever you say.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir, Dr. Morris.
Are we to include in our agenda the Finance Committee action item without including the minutes?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, because see, that is part of the minutes.
Dr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I speak?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Dr. Myers, we forward the agenda things, but not the minutes. We don't forward the minutes to the board. We forward the items that we discussed, and the minutes will follow later, I think. That's the way I perceive them to be before.
Okay.
That is
All right.
correct.
We just forward the items that we discussed to the board for action, but not the minutes. We want to take the minutes up with the action items.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have any further discussion on adopting the agenda? The motion that Ms. Gleason has made and Ms. Dickerson has seconded. Okay. Bar none, indicate by saying aye. Anderson, aye. Leek?
Aye.
Mood?
Aye.
Gleason?
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Howard? Okay. I don't think he's on the call. Smith?
Aye.
Morris?
Aye.
Burgess?
Aye.
Dickerson?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is adopted. Okay, next up is the MTR, Midland Transit Riders Association update. Do we have one?
We have no representative from Midlands Transit at this point.
Okay, next up is call to the public. Is anybody from the public on the phone?
No members of the public here. I don't hear any members of the public on the public line.
Okay. Presentations. Employee of the Month by TransDev and Transport Care. Mr. Gabaldon and Ms. Platt.
Since we're not doing that in person, I'll just give you a summary of that item, which is on page 6 of your packet. In the case of TransDev, their Employee of the Month for April 2020 is Betty Robinson. She's been the Safety and Training Manager for the past 20 years, and she's done an outstanding work at TransDev. In the case of Transport Care Services, their Employee of the Month is Shauna Anderson, and she's been with Transport Care Services since September of 2015 and as a paratransit operator. And she's a reliable team player and acknowledged by her fellow workers. Once we're able to have public meetings with everyone in the room, we'll have all the previous Employees of the Month show up so the board can meet them and hear from them.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is the consent calendar. Can I get a motion to adopt the, well, let me ask. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull one item off.
Okay.
I'd like to pull J off.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Well,
Anybody
Mr.
else
Chair,
have anything they want to read?
Mr.
Yes,
Chair, I
ma'am.
move to adopt the agenda with the removal of number of alphabet J.
Okay. I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar with the removal absent item J. Can I get a second? I have a second from Mr. Fergus. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, barring none, all those indicate by saying aye. Anderson, aye. Leek,
Aye.
Mood,
Aye.
Gleason,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Morris,
Aye.
Burgess,
Aye.
Dickerson.
Aye.
Okay. So let's take item J. Transit operations request for proposals, ad hoc committee actions items, and all, I believe, is the only action item here the approval of the minutes from those 3 meetings?
Yes, that is correct, because I'm not sure if that committee is going to meet again.
Okay. So, Mr. Huggins.
Just to close the record.
Okay, Dr. Morris, you had wanted us off the agenda. Do you have a question or something you wanted to talk about with it?
I am asking the board to postpone the ratings coming from board members because I know we don't have them all in. And I'm asking to postpone that until April the 29th.
Okay, Dr. Morris, I think you got the, oh boy. So
I
revised
the other agenda.
Yeah, Dr.
Okay.
Morris. So, Pam, how do we need? So we took the wrong thing off the agenda.
No, that's on the amended agenda. So, so J has no items. Basically, that ad hoc committee has not met. So there's really no action for the board to take in relation to J. So I think what Dr. Morris is doing is giving an advisory.
Okay.
So
that's the Executive Director Ad Hoc Evaluation Committee. So I think, Dr. Morris, I think if you want to do any actionable items, that committee needs to meet. And then you need to recommend actions for the board.
Now, I thought we were talking about the amended agenda. We should be just working off one agenda.
We should be working off the amended agenda, correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Could Dr. Morris's concern be addressed or his request be addressed under item 9 on the progress reports from the ad hoc evaluation committee?
It could. Does that work for you, Dr. Morris?
That's fine.
There's no action. Yeah, there's no action under under this one. Okay, so we do need to clean this up. We need someone to motion to approve the transit operations request for proposals ad hoc committee action items, which are basically just the approval, not basically, that's the approval of 3 sets of minutes. January 8th,
I so move.
27th. Okay, I have a motion for Ms. Mood. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Smith. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, barring none, indicate by saying aye when I read your name. Anderson, aye. Leek?
Aye.
Mood?
Aye.
Gleaton?
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Morris?
Aye.
Burgess?
Aye.
Dickerson?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to item 7, other discussion and action items. Public hearing for applying for SPA Section 5310 and certifying governor that there is no nonprofit provider to provide transportation services in rural Richland and Lexington counties for seniors and persons with disabilities. Michelle.
Good afternoon. The Comet has applied for some 5310 funding through SCDOT for providing service to seniors and persons with disabilities. In order to do that, we have to show that there are no other willing and able entities, nonprofits, et cetera, that would also like to provide that service. So we advertised a public hearing and had a cutoff date for anyone requesting that public hearing. There were no requests, so therefore we are asking that the board approve a resolution that authorizes staff to file the application in determining that there is no eligible nonprofit readily available to provide the same service. It's a $50,000 federal fund application, which would equate to $12,500 in matching dollars.
And just so the board's aware, these funds are going to be used for a taxi voucher and volunteer driver reimbursement program in rural areas of Richland and Lexington counties that are not in the Columbia urbanized area. So this includes Eastover, Hopkins, Gadsden, and Batesburg-Leesville.
Okay. So you just need a resolution, Michelle?
Michelle, should we at least open the public hearing, close it, and then ask for the resolution to be adopted for formality?
Okay. Then I open the public hearing on the FTA application for 5310 funds. is there anyone who would like to speak at the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, just let me excuse me 1 moment. Mr. Howard is trying to get in, but he can't get in.
Okay. And Ms. Jernigan, can you help him get on the phone real quick?
Paige, you there? I'll get with Mr. Howard.
Okay, you're going to deal with it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've opened the public hearing. Is there anyone on the line to speak in the public hearing on the 5310 grant application? Okay, barring none, I close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to, or can I get a resolution to approve applying for section FTA section 5310 funds?
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Burgess. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Dickerson. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, barring none, indicate by voting, by saying aye when I read your name. Anderson, aye. Leak,
Aye.
Mood,
Aye.
Gleaton,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Howard, are you on the phone?
Leon Howard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Is now joining.
Mr. Howard, do you want to wait and vote on the next thing? Or do you
I'm
want to
sorry?
vote on this? We have a motion to approve a federal application for 5310 funds. Do you want to vote on this, or you want to skip it since you missed the conversation?
No, let me skip it. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, fair enough.
Guys, I apologize. I was on mute.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Dr. Morris,
Aye.
Burgess,
Aye.
Dickerson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, next item is 7B, amend the workshop agenda to include a discussion on the expansion of public transit services in September 2020. And delay the workshop to Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020 is defined by the COVID-19.
Mr.
plan.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair. Before we get
Yes,
in that discussion, I have some grave concerns about that workshop because what we're discussing isn't being named. And I'm being told that that's something to discuss in executive session.
Okay.
And I can read in Carolina's paper, the Gamecock, how an offer was made to them and that they rejected in 2018. I think as vice chair, I should know what that offer was and who made it.
Okay.
And I'm reading that out of Carolina's paper.
Yeah, why don't we do this then? Why don't we get a motion to defer this until after executive committee? Will that work?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion to defer this item until after executive committee. Can I get a second?
Do you mean after that executive session?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll second it.
Okay. Who seconded that?
I think Dr. Moore seconded that.
I second
Is
it.
that you, Dr.? Okay. I have a
Albert
motion
Morris.
and a second. Do I have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Okay, barring none, indicate by saying yay or nay when I read your name. Anderson, yay. Leaks,
Yes.
Mood,
Yes.
Gleaton,
Yes.
Huggins,
I'm going to recuse myself of the vote.
okay. Howard. Okay, Smith,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Dickerson.
Yes.
Okay. Item C, discussion of board policy 1, board orientation, new board members who have served less than 6 months to go through training to become knowledgeable and effective comment board members. says Franny, and I don't think Franny's on the call. So John or Pam, whichever one of you want to manage this.
Let's see, 1 second. Yes, so I'll take this with Pam's help. Dr. Moore made a request about wanting to discuss board policy number 1 about board orientation and new board members who have served less than 6 months to go through training to become knowledgeable and effective comment board members. My understanding from the past and from as long as I've been here is that we do have every board member go through an orientation. It's about 3 hours. And since we've been here, we've had Ms. Fulware, Mayor Robinson, Mayor Horton, Mr. Reilly, Mr. Unthank, Mayor Miles, and Vice Mayor Kuhn all go through this orientation for approximately 3 hours. And they've gotten all the documents in relation to what it takes to be an effective comment board member. In addition, we've redistributed the governance binder to all the board members back in June of 2019 and given all the new board members current versions of the governance binder. So I guess that's what we've been doing. So I'll leave it to Ms. Dr. Morris if you have any comments.
Yes, I certainly do. I don't question what you do there, Mr. Andor. What I am concerned about, a board member can criticize a board, and when that board member supposed to be advisory board member and supposed to provide advice, I think in your training sessions, you need to make sure you share that with the board members so they can understand their roles. And certainly those of us who've been working on this board a long period of time and doing the best we can, we don't need someone to come in and criticize us. So that was my concern.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have anything else to discuss about this?
I do, Ron.
Go ahead, Debbie.
This is Debbie Summers, and I will say I am only an advisory member of this board, but if you will indulge me just a moment here. First of all, let me say thank you to all of our comment board members for the service that they provide to the citizens. And I've been an advisory board member for a number of years, first representing Lexington County and currently representing the town of Springdale. I was inactive for a while. And thanks to our current CEO, I am more committed than ever to contributing to the success of the comment. Yes, recently there was a remark that was made by a new comment board member. He was concerned about the manner in which the board functions. The statement was disappointing to one of our longstanding comment board members because they felt that the new member had not served long enough on the comment board to know how our board operated. Well, I too was disappointed, but I was disappointed in myself. For a long time, I have felt that the comment board was dysfunctional, and I failed to speak up. I attended meetings, all the while knowing this was the most dysfunctional board or commission I had served on in 25 years. Maybe because I'm not a voting member, I felt that anything I would say would fall on deaf ears. I have never felt so compelled to express my concern, but today I am. You do not have to be a comment expert to know how a proper board should conduct business. The new board member made the comment about the board's dysfunctions. He has credentials, both professionally and politically, to understand how a proper board should function. He was just calling it the way he saw it. He was saying what I wanted to say for some time, and I just failed to do that. The comment board has operated in a negative manner for a long time, even before our CEO, John Ando, came on board. And since arriving, he has worked tirelessly to get us in the best position possible to be successful. But a few on our board are a hindrance to the CEO, the staff, and to the rest of the board of the Comet. We are or should be appointed as policy makers, period. We are appointed to see that the CEO accomplishes the mission of our organization, which is to provide first-class transit to everybody in the Midlands. That's his responsibility. But to be successful, he and his staff are deserving.
Franny Heiser is now joining.
Okay.
Thank you, Franny. This is Debbie Summers.
Mr. Chair.
To be successful, he and his staff are deserving of an effective board. They should have.
Mr. Burgess, I'll get you
never
next.
have to leave. I'm sorry.
I was saying, Ms. Burgess, I'll get to you in a second. I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's all right. They should leave a board meeting inspired but not defeated. This board is a hindrance because we have members who act as if they're appointed to run the day-to-day operations of the Comet. We have board members who speak as if they're experts in operations and marketing and HR. At times, it feels like a bullying act. We waste valuable time discussing petty issues. Our CEO is questioned about everything he does by micromanagers. The staff is made to feel inadequate. As a board, we need to allow the professionals in transit operations to do their jobs, and we should provide policy and support. We are fortunate to have Mr. Ando lead our public transportation efforts in the Midlands, and I hope we can keep him for a few more years. In his short time leading this organization, he has created a great reputation for himself and the Comet in all of our communities. We do not need another appointed body in the Midlands to make the news, but I fear that we, as an organization, the Comet, might be headed in that direction. I could not allow another day to go by without speaking up. I will be sending a letter to all the entities that appoint to this board, both Lexington and Richland County Councils, the Lexington and Richland legislative delegations, City of Columbia, Forest Acres, and each of the municipalities that appoint advisory members. The letter encourages them to speak with other board members and staff if needed. The Comet Board has far more positive, dedicated professionals who serve our citizens and represent their communities than we do negative. But when you have the presence of negativity in any organization, it can be discouraging. I believe the Comet Board exists for the people of the Midlands to have quality service and not for a few appointed citizens to see that this is an opportunity to elevate themselves. I am confident that the council, delegations, and the municipalities desire to appoint citizens who can contribute positively to board members, as board members. Our communities are a wealth of amazing citizens and professionals who are willing to serve if asked. Please understand, my motive for being vocal today is because I only want what is best for the staff of the Comet and the citizens of the Midlands. Today, we are not an effective, productive board, and that is what citizens expect, and that's what our governing bodies deserve. I really appreciate everyone allowing me to speak today. I just wish that I had been bold enough to do it sooner. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Burgess, I think you had a comment.
Yes, I hope I get that much time to speak. But let me defend board members. We have highly qualified, educationally and experienced board members. We offer more free service in Lexington County than any years that I've been on the board. So to be dysfunctional, we're putting out a lot of work. Sure, we're going to have disagreement. That's what a board have. If you want to say dysfunction, go to a Chapin County city council meeting. You know, that will show you what a board shouldn't respond like. But I think it's an insult to say as advisory, the appointed board members that's producing the work, not doing anything, and the advisory members are geniuses. That's all I have to say. And it wasn't a response to Dr. Morris's question. That still hadn't been answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Robert
yes, sir,
Morris.
Go ahead, yes, sir. Go ahead.
My concern is still outstanding. I think for new board members, the ED CEO should make sure they understand their roles, and their roles are, as we know, to advise, not to criticize. I don't think that I would come to the defense of a board member if I thought he or she is wrong. And this is what I'm hearing now, coming to the defense of a board member. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say?
Well, I'm not dysfunction, and I enjoy working on this board. And I really feel that though that was a very big insult. We are not that dysfunctional here because we know how to make decisions. This Carolyn Gleaton. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Mood, go ahead.
I would just say that, I've served as both a voting board member and as an advisory board member on this board over a number of years. And I was very grateful during the time that I was an advisory board member to be given a voice in the discussions. I never felt limited in terms of my contribution to the board's functioning. The only thing I did not have in that position was a vote, but I did have a voice. I think it makes all of us uncomfortable if we hear someone point out things they think we can do better. But I would encourage all of the board members not to take criticism personally, but to look at what am I contributing and where might I be able to make a better contribution. And I just would like for us to accept feedback with grace and not get tangled up in personal feelings. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say?
Ron, if I could just go ahead, Mr. Huggins.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is we have board members that represent constituents across all economic, socioeconomic situations. And in certain situations, yes, you do have to be in weeds to make sure that your base is taken care of, especially your constituents. So individuals that may get into the weeds, it's not because they're trying to do policy. They're just trying to make sure their constituents are taken care of. So please keep that in mind. I understand policy, but then at the same time, we have to make sure that we represent the needs of all our constituents, and sometimes it may require us to get in the weeds. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Summers, I think.
Yes. Can someone tell me who just spoke? I don't know who just spoke.
That was Derek Huggins, Ms. Dickerson. Ms. Dickerson, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Leon, can you mute your phone, please? Or whoever's phone that is, would you mind muting your phone? Thank you. Okay, Ms. Summers, I think you were trying to say something.
Yeah, that's fine. Mr. Huggins, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's the one thing that I feel like any board, that's where their strength is in the discussions. And that's why we're there to represent the citizens. So I anticipate, encourage, and look forward to hearing people who represent a certain area of our communities to speak up and to talk about what they need. But I feel like we get bogged down so much. We've got good people on this board, but we get so bogged down in critiquing so much. And it's as if we, again, are trying to tend to the daily constraints of the comment. And it's just not, that's out of our lane. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. And we just waste a lot of valuable time. And I will say that I think what we're doing right now, for the board members coming on is quite sufficient. It's worked for years. And for people that are coming in from a professional level, especially, and they serve on 2 or 3 boards at the time, they don't need to go through board training. If someone's never served on a board, then I think possibly maybe they do need extra help, or maybe they just need to sit back and listen for a while or something. But the average person coming on a board like this could very easily have years of experience. And it's just, again, it's something that I desire for the Comet. We've got amazing staff, and we've got a community that is vital, but we have got to be productive and professional. And I'm sorry, I know that it hurts to say it. It hurt me to say it, but I just don't feel like we do the Comet justice sometimes with how we point the negative out all the time, and not in a positive way. And you can be constructive and be positive.
Well, may I say something?
Yeah, as soon as she's done.
Okay.
Are you done, Ms.
I'm
Summers?
done.
Okay.
That's all.
Mr. Lee, turn to Lee.
Well, I'm a little disappointed in all the innuendo that we have going here, but I do think that I represent the whole service area, and I also think that it's my duty to get involved in anything that I see that's going to make, as a board member, that's going to make this operation better. I don't think we should be a board that just come in and be a rubber stamp type operation. So whenever I question John or whenever I discuss something, I'm discussing it because I can't vote on anything. If I don't get in kind of into the weeds, how am I going to know that I'm doing the best thing in the interest of the service area? So I'm a little disappointed with the criticism. I think it could have been done, but I think it could have been done a different way. And that's all I got to say.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
may I say something? This is Skip Jenkins here.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jenkins.
I just have one question. I've been listening to that, and every meeting I've been listening to stuff, and I just wonder, do we ever... question was, do we ever play the tape back? Anybody ever listen at the tape?
Yes, sir. What? Can you go? Did you get what? Ask your question again, Mr. Jenkins.
I was just wondering. I've been listening at a lot of meetings and stuff out there, and I just wondered, do we ever play the tape back that we can see how we sound when we're having a meeting? How we allowing people to get their point across? I think what we have to do has to get into the part of conducting a meeting. I mean, actually, we board meetings, board members, but you have to learn how to conduct a meeting. And I think you get a whole lot more done. Your understanding of it. You get the minutes and all that, but you need to hear how we sound when we're having a meeting. And that should make a lot of people change the way they conduct themselves. That's just my opinion.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for speaking up. Anybody else? Okay. Well, we don't really have an action item on this, so unless there's more to say, why don't we move on to D, which is sort of a subset of this discussion. Franny, I think you wanted to take this one, which is discussion of advisory board members.
Sure. The IGA and the bylaws of the RTA provide that advisory members, jurisdictions can appoint advisory members of the board. Other than not voting, and in some instances where committees have to have a certain number of voting members, there are really no limits or restrictions on the participation of an advisory board member. So to have comments, to receive information, to make suggestions, give advice, etc., those are all functions within the role of an advisory board member. It's kind of simple. You know, they can do anything a board member can do, but they just don't vote.
Right.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Any discussion on that?
I do have a quick question, Ron. This is Andy.
Yes, sir.
It's a question for Franny. Throughout this whole discussion, for both voting board members and advisory board members, I think there's some tension, and I experience it myself, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding where I should land. tension between representing constituents, those who have appointed us, and our, what I'm going to call our fiduciary responsibility to the authority and to the bus system itself. Those things don't necessarily have to compete, but it seems like sometimes they might. How should we look at that?
So Andy, that's like a philosophical question that has been around since democracy in Athens, I think. It's an excellent question. And I think that once you have become a board member, that your fiduciary duty to the group, to the entity, trumps your representation of a specific constituency. But that's just my view. I mean, there are others that could argue very strongly that, you know, you're appointed by XYZ and you're there just to do XYZ work. If you compare this situation to one of a representative group like a county council or a city council, you know, I think that most district representatives would say that they represent their district first and the county or the city second, but that tends to create a decision-making process that does not benefit the group as a whole. So I would encourage board members to think globally, to think about the whole system, but I can't say that it's improper to represent your particular constituency. Now, having said that, for constituencies, like you've got Richland County appoints people, City of Columbia appoints people, Forest Acres appoints people. So, if someone wants to take the position that they're representing a constituency, then I think they would represent all of Richland County. They would represent all of Forest Acres. So I'm not sure that question helps. That might be a good, sort of icebreaker discussion at your workshop, because that's really a very fundamental issue about how a board works.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
May I say something?
Yeah, hold on one second, Mr. Lee. Was somebody else trying to say something?
I'd like to say something too, please.
Okay. Colonel Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in my opening statement when I said I thought globally about the whole system, that's my thinking just as Franny. My first mission is to work for the entire system and then make sure that it works well for everybody in the system. That's what I tried to do. I remember when I first came on the board, somebody told me that I represented Lower Richland County. And I said, no, I represent the whole system. And I agree with you. That's what we should do. And we do it that way, I think we'll be all right. Go ahead. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
I was just going to say that I agree with Franny's suggestion that we can incorporate this discussion, because I think it is an important discussion, and I don't want us to take all of our board meeting today. But when we're under the agenda item for the workshop, where we're looking at the vision for the authority, I believe that this is something that we can discuss more fully then, and I'd like for us to do that.
Okay. Okay, great.
I don't think we have to add an agenda item. I think it's already that we already have a place to talk about it there.
Okay.
I agree.
Anybody else have anything right now on this? Okay. Bar none. Item E, authorization for and retaining of attorneys for service of the CMRTA board.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Can I say something before Franny speak on this? Because
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Burgess. You had asked to have this added to the agenda, so why don't you address your what your concern was, please?
My concern was, having been a board member for several years, and the authority to hire and the attorneys was left with the board. But it seems as though that has changed, because we spent a lot of money with Bob, the previous CEO, his attaining attorneys without the knowledge of the board. it seems now that we've given the CEO authority to hire attorneys to interrogate a board member. I've never heard of such a thing. Even though the board authorized the payments to the attorneys, a staff member can have an attorney interrogate a board member. That doesn't seem too right to me.
Okay.
See, so,
Okay.
And another thing we need to discuss, when we are told based on the staff, the CEO, what we discussed in executive session. And these are unauthorized moves around the city. We need to get a hold to that. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Now, I know what you were talking about in the first instance. You were talking about, I believe you were talking about the motion. Well, I'm not really sure exactly what you're talking about with interrogating about either thing. Can you elaborate on either one?
I came to 2 meetings, and the attorneys present were chopping at the bit to question me on the RFP, how I knew things that were in the RFP, and I basically chaired it all the way down to its completion.
Okay.
Nobody's even asked now what's going to be done about the CEO inserting something into that document. Nobody's even questioned that. Even the attorneys haven't questioned what the board's going to do about that. It hasn't come up. So I'm just saying. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Heiser, why don't you address the authorization and retention of an attorney for CMRTA?
Sure. We did a memo that I think is in your package. It's not terribly long. I think it's on page 71 and 72. And it starts out with an explanation, kind of like I said about the whole director's issue, that we represent this thing called the entity, that we represent the Regional Transit Authority, as that's our client. And that in order to represent that client, we work with directors and employees. I think it's very clear that the board engages the services of attorneys. So, for example, when the DOR lawsuit came up and we had a conflict, there was a recommendation, and the board approved engaging the Robinson Gray firm, or Gray Sowell at the time. There have also been some efforts in the board documentations that to clarify the role of the attorneys. And so I reference a motion from June of 2019 and then the policy. So we have a fiduciary duty to the entity. In that capacity, we advise both board members and the staff.
You may have any questions?
Yes, well, you can't get to the staff if the board don't hire you and authorize your payment. So is your loyalty and expertise to the staff or to the board? And I don't see it coming from the staff questioning the board.
Well, yes,
I do have.
I understand the point, and we never want to get crosswise with a board member. Don't really want to get crosswise with a staff member, but there is a certain element of independence, and that's not independence where we would go out and do a bunch of work and submit a bill to the authority. But we need to always keep in mind the best interests of the whole group. Now, most of our contact is with the executive director, and so very frequently you'll see work product that comes from us, but it gets to y'all through the executive director. But at the end of the day, we are responsible to the whole board as a group, and we try to discharge that duty. For example, on the issue of the RFP, I think that we undertook to review every version of that document that went out and to help explain the discrepancy or why the committee hadn't seen certain language, et cetera. So I think that was an example of us working through an issue to educate the full board about a particular matter. But we don't. I don't believe that your executive director can go out and engage the services of an attorney. Now, once we're engaged as general counsel, we have a laundry list of matters of things that we are authorized to do work on. And I think that's attached here, like in the scope of work, et cetera. So that's we don't have to come back to the board for every discrete piece of work we do, as long as it's under that generalized scope of work for general counsel. And I will tell y'all that in negotiating the particular contract, I think John would recall this, we made it very clear that we don't work for or answer to the executive director. We may report through him, but our professional responsibility is to the entity and to the board as a whole.
You know, I appreciate that, but my concern was how could he direct you and your staff to question the vice chair of the board?
Well, I think that was based on information that that we initially received, and then as we worked through the process, we received additional information, and I think we were able to give the board an accurate report on exactly what transpired with the RFP.
But if that was the case, shouldn't the board appoint an attorney to represent me in your questioning? Did we leave out a step in the process?
That's a good question. And there certainly is a foundation for an entity providing legal representation to a member of its governing body. But I think that would have the full board would have needed to make that decision. And as I say, we try. We try very hard to stay away from having to focus on, or as you say, interrogate or question any particular board member. We try very hard to stay away from that.
It didn't seem that way with the experience, and in defense of Ron, when Ron was disturbed and upset, I asked 2 times, did we have attorneys present trying to save Ron? Because I know, knowing Ron, I know he didn't want to engage in what he engaged in. He was just upset. And nobody butted in to stop that and say, that isn't appropriate.
Mr. Chair, Robert Morris.
Yes, sir, Dr. Morris.
Through you to Attorney Heiser. Attorney, when you got information from the ED CEO, did at any point you said to him, well, you need to discuss this with that particular board member first?
Dr. Morris, are you referring to the issue that Ms. Burgess is talking about?
Yes.
So I actually, the way that happened, or the way that transpired, is Mr. Burgess emailed me, and I didn't really understand his question, and because I hadn't been involved in any of the RFP discussions at all, and so I just said, hey, let me check. And I forwarded the email on to Franny and Pam, and they called me and said, hey, this is, there's something that this is an issue. So that was the point. John was actually out of town, and we looped him in afterwards. So I was actually responding to Mr. Burgess because I didn't know he sort of asked, you'd have to read the email, but it was a legal-ish question, and I didn't understand the context of the question. And so I sent it over to them to review. That's how that all started.
Yes, I have no problem with that, but should someone have spoken with Mr. Fergus?
Well, that was the point at which they decided that that was the best course of action, is for Franny to reach out to Mr. Fergus and try to ascertain what had happened.
Okay, and she did that.
Correct.
I'm not really sure at what point I talked to Mr. Fergus, to be honest with you.
Well, I think you emailed him, and I think you tried to call him. I don't think you actually got a hold of him about it.
I was questioned blindsided in a board meeting. No contact with me or any other on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very sorry for mishandling, that issue. At the end of the day, the information about the iterations of the RFP became very clear. The question about who talked to who and who learned what from who or whatever, I think we just left that there was general information out on the street.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Okay. Barring none, let's move on to the motion period. Do I have any motions from finance?
You do have a motion from finance, and that will be discussed in executive session.
Okay. Any additional motions?
Yes, I have an additional motion.
Yes, sir.
I move that any item for executive session be discussed with the appropriate chair before including in the agenda.
Okay.
I second.
I have a motion to any item for executive.
I move that any item for the executive session
Okay.
be discussed with the appropriate chair before being included on the agenda.
Mr. Anderson,
Okay.
just as an FYI, that's already board policy.
Okay.
Any item that goes on a committee agenda has to be discussed with the chair for board policy 3.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I am
Yes, sir.
alluding to the fact that the expansion during the finance committee meeting was not discussed with me. And I want the motion so this will not happen again to any chair.
You're talking about the one that we added today to the agenda?
No, the one during the finance committee meeting. We discussed the expansion, but I didn't know anything about it, nor any committee member until we got into the meeting.
That's actually not true, Dr. Morris. You were at the executive committee meeting that was I believe it was in March.
Is now exiting.
And we discussed that same item at the executive committee meeting. And at the executive committee meeting, we determined that it would go to both finance and service at the April meeting, which is what happened. If you recall, we decided we talked about it at executive committee to send it to those committees so they would have the full opportunity to review it, and that it would remain under executive session at those committee meetings.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
What was the name of the school that discussed?
No, sir, because it was contractual matter. But typically in a contractual matter that you're putting into executive session, you're doing it to protect the entities that we are contracting with.
Mr. Chair, what is the contract?
I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Chair, but I do have a concern when I can read it in a local paper, but yet we can't get it in our committee meeting ahead. We can't get it ahead of time before it goes to committee.
Well, all I would say to that is that, we have to, when we're negotiating with an entity, regardless of the contract, if we've been asked to do it in executive session, we have to do that now. If they or someone else tells the media about it, there isn't really any control about that, but we need to we need to respect the privacy that's been requested of the entity that we're dealing with, which is what we were doing.
Mr.
Chair, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. My concern is being disappointed when you read something in the media, the local papers, and you don't know about it.
Right, except you did know about it, Dr. Morris. Remember?
Not the Pickle School.
No. We had actually, we had talked about an executive committee in March or in February, I believe. So.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. So, Mr. Burgess, you've been waiting to say something. Mr. Burgess, are you there?
You have two attorneys present, and we keep referring to contractual. We have done nothing that's authorized by the board contractual with anybody.
We haven't. Correct.
I can read in this school's paper that they've rejected an offer from us in 2018. And as vice chair, I don't know what they're even talking about. Now we go in executive session and don't want to identify what I'm reading in the paper, and it's a Post and Courier paper. They print it.
Mr. Chair, can I answer this question on the newspaper article? I have it posted here, and I'll send it to the board. So, as a timeline of events, we've been talking about the expansion of transit services going back to 2019. And it's been, looking at the history, it's been talked about twice in executive committee. Once in the the July of 2019 timeframe, and then again in February. When this article was released by a student editor, it was released on 2/23, which was after the executive committee when we had the discussion about the matter, and it was recommended that it get put on the agenda for discussion at the service committees and the finance committee. The comments that he's making in relation to a partnership between the Comet and the University Transit Services was proposed in August of 2018. The agreement would outsource maintenance costs to the Comet and expand the university's bus network. This proposal was rejected by Parking and Transportation Services in spring of 2019, but a new draft was under review by the department. Quite frankly, we were just told that it was rejected. So we did not do anything further. When it came back up again, that's when I talked with the chair, and then that's when it got placed on the executive committee agenda for further discussion on the matter.
Mr. Chair, I still say if anybody from the Comet is negotiating with anybody in the public, at least the chair and the vice chair ought to know, because those where the questions will be asked. I have no knowledge of any negotiations with the University of South Carolina for their shuttle service.
Yeah, well, Mr. Burgess, if you recall, we did discuss this in executive committee back in, I believe we talked about it in 2019 as well.
July of 2019.
Yeah, July of 2019, we had an executive committee meeting where we discussed this issue. So I know you may not recall it, but I do. And I don't recall the dates, but we did go into executive committee at that executive session at that point and discuss it in executive committee and authorize John to have preliminary negotiations or preliminary discussions Now it never got as far as a contract at that point, so it really wasn't a contract per se. So, but you usually negotiate your deal points before you ever actually get to a contract. So, I'm sorry, was somebody trying to say something? Okay. Well, does that answer everybody's question?
Yes.
Okay. So back to, there was a motion on the floor from Dr. Morris. And if you wouldn't mind, Dr. Morris, would you restate it, please?
My motion was, I move that any item for executive session be discussed with the appropriate chair prior to putting it on the agenda.
Okay, and I have a motion and I have a second. Does everybody understand the motion? Okay, any discussion?
Could I ask a quick question? Is Dr. Morris referring to agendas for committee meetings, or would that include agendas for committees and the full board?
I said appropriate chair. So we have chairs for committees and we have chair for the full board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, barring none, indicate.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Go. Yes, ma'am.
My reluctance is to make such a broad brush motion that applies to everything, when I think that different items have different individual specificity. So I want the appropriate people to be informed, but I don't want to make such a hard and fast rule for every case when it just may not fit.
Yeah. John, am I correct, John, the policy right now is that the policy that we have now is what Dr. Morris is making a motion to do, correct?
Yeah, it's already policy. I can't do an agenda without discussing it with the appropriate chairs. Because those chairs have to approve the agenda. And I always contact, well, in the case of finance, I generally have Rosalind take care of that. In the case of service, I do that with Colonel Lee. And then in the case of executive and board, I do that with you.
Right.
So in essence, we're making a motion for something that's already policy.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Burgess.
Based on what John Andover just said, that same discussion came up in the service committee. I want to ask Mr. Colonel Leach, did he know that was in the executive session?
Well, yes, I did. I did. I didn't know all the details in it, but I knew something about it.
I noticed you didn't speak up when I asked in executive session, why were we discussing it in executive session? You didn't speak up.
Okay. Colonel Leach, I think that was addressed to you.
I might have to go back and look at some notes. I don't know, but
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Ms. Dickerson, I think you were.
I was going to say I'm going to abstain from voting on this particular item since it's already in the on our rules and regulations, our policies. So I'm going to abstain. I don't think I need to vote on something that we already have in our policy. Thank you.
Okay. So any further discussion? Okay, barring none, indicate by saying yay or nay when I read your name. Anderson, no. Leaks.
Yes.
Mood.
No.
Fleeton.
Yes.
Okay, hold on one sec. Huggins.
Abstain.
Howard. Okay, Smith.
No.
Morris.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
And Dickerson is an abstention.
Abstain.
Okay. Okay, I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the motion carries unless I counted wrong. I have no, and no, and then yes. The motion carries 4-3.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, Paige, you are there. Okay, great.
I am sorry.
Okay, any additional motions from the Finance Committee?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Service Committee, Mr. Leaks, Colonel Leaks, you have any motions?
No motions.
Okay, Executive Committee has none. Any from the board members as a whole?
Yes, I do. I have several motions.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Burgess, take the first one.
All right. The first one is I move that we prepare an audit of the CMRT for compliance to the penny tax referendum of 2012.
Okay. I have a motion to prepare an audit and audited by a third party?
That's correct.
Okay. Different than the Department of Revenue audit that was just done?
Well, they haven't audited anything as far as that on the expenditures. We have other items that could be contrary to what the penny referendum stated.
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion, and the second is from
Robert Morris.
Okay, I have a motion, and Dr. Morris, I'm sorry, Mr. Burgess, would you state the motion one more time, please?
All right, I move that we have an audit prepared of the CMRT for compliance to the penny tax referendum of 2012.
Okay. I have a motion
and
a motion and a second. Hold on, Ms. Dickerson. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Dickerson.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a problem. I mean, when we talk about this penny, you're not just talking about the CMRTA. That penny stretches out across Richland County. And so looks like the audits that we are currently dealing with, I'm not sure whether you just want to do it for just the CMRTA, how you pull that part out. So there are a lot of little parts to that penny. So I don't know where you go to discuss that at, but we should already have an order. We should be in compliance with that penny. If not, then this whole bus was shut down. I'm telling you, that's just my concern. I mean, I'm very concerned about that.
Okay.
But then my concern was just the penny part, since it stated what the penny and the CMRT, the requirements for the CMRT in the referendum.
Well, like I said, that's tied to a lot of things. And I can't discuss a lot of things. I'm being on both sides. I don't know whether I'm going to abstain from. I don't know where you're going to send this, but I'm abstaining from that. I don't think I can.
But does that one give you a heartburn? I'll withdraw it.
No, I don't think we need to go down that road.
All right, I withdraw that motion.
Okay.
Motion.
Okay.
I move that any expansion of service, whether public or private, be approved by the CMRT board before staff can engage in any proceedings to offer such service.
Okay.
Mr. Fergus, may I intercede on that one as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about that, we have to understand, where our fundings are coming from and how these fundings are being appropriate to this particular organization. So, I mean, it's not, when you start doing that, you start putting, we'd have to look at the COGS, we have to look at various other entities who contribute funds to this. And so this organization is being funded by numerous sources. And I don't hear of any questioning us from the sources who actually do the fundings right now. I think when they start questioning us about funding, then I think that's when we probably should be looking at it. But as long as, say, for instance, the COG does not, and the COG have 56 members, I believe 56 members. And so they approve a lot of fundings to come over to this particular organization. Other entities contribute to this, so I'm not sure how, when we start doing that, how this actually affects other organizations as well.
The only thing I'm
Mr. Chairman,
I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, we'll get to you in a second, Mr. Colonel Lee. Go ahead, Mr. Burgess.
All right, but the only thing I'm just trying to make sure that the board is knowledgeable. Sometimes we have to be told directly. We can't assume that something's going on. We need to be told directly that this is going to happen before it happens.
Mr. Fergus, when we have our audits and we do our audits, when we look at our audits and if we see or anything in those audits of funding distributions in those audits that we have questions about, then I think that's the time we should raise questions. But if we approve our annual audit, and there are no questions, then, I mean, I don't know why, I don't see the need, in my opinion, for staff to continue to be redundant in doing a lot of redundancy and work. And this would, in my opinion, this would create not only that, it will also make us have to hire additional people to do this. I'm not sure whether in my opinion, I don't know whether that's a road I want to go down. Okay. I mean, the board, we have 11 members on this board, and so whatever the will of the board is, that is the board's decision. But right now, I just think that our fundings are being audited. We have a financial committee. We have all of those things, and we have all the tools in place that we can work with without. I mean, there are other ways that we can manage some of these things without additional funding sources to go down a different route. That is my opinion.
Okay. Colonel Leaks, I think you were trying to ask a question or something.
Yeah, I was trying to get some clarification because apparently I don't understand what Mrs. Dickerson is speaking about. What was the original motion from Mr. Fergus?
Well, the first motion, he withdrew the first motion.
Right,
now
right.
We're on the second motion.
That's the one I want. What is this motion? What is this motion about?
Ms. Burgess, would you restate your second motion, please?
Yes, I move that any expansion of service, whether public or private, be approved by the CMRT board before staff can engage in any proceedings to offer such service.
Well, I thought that's what it was about, and I
thought that's
think
what we were doing. No, wait a minute, Mr. Lee.
Okay.
I thought that's what we were doing, and that is why I said that. I mean, I'm looking at the redundancy of this. I don't think that can be done without us engaging in it anyhow. And these funding sources, they come. I mean, all of these expansion of services, they have a funding source connected with them. You don't just expand without having the funds appropriated to those actual entities. So I'm thinking, what I'm saying, I don't think we can expand service anyhow without the board approving it, going through a committee and the board approving the committee's recommendation. So I thought that's what we do. If that's not, then I probably missed the whole point.
No, you're correct. That is how things work. Then to elaborate, typically the staff has to go work out the details with anybody that is asking us to expand service. They've got to go work out the details of that and put a price on it and figure out how that's going to work. So if you say, well, we've got to approve them doing that, I mean, how approve them doing what exactly? And so, in any case, we have Mr. Burgess. Mr. Lee, did you get your question answered?
Well, I think so, but are we saying that?
Well, hold on. We need a second before we get into discussion. So I've got a motion. Did anybody second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, Dr. Morris has seconded it. I have a motion and a second.
I have a question.
Okay, I'll get to you in a second. Let me get to Colonel Lee.
I just want to make sure that what we're doing is we're only saying that this before any country, any discussion is started with any side, any entity, that the board should know about it. That was Mr. Furge's question, right? I don't see where that had anything to do with funding or anything. It's just a matter of whether we should know about it prior. Is that right, Mr. Furge?
That's correct.
So that's, yeah, I can go along with that.
Okay. Dr. Morris.
My concern, back again, is the fact that the board should be made aware of all these expansion of services. And if we are doing that, we don't need the motion. But I don't think that we are doing that in all cases.
Okay. So,
Dr. Martin,
hold on.
so you don't.
Ms. Dickerson, hold on a second. Somebody else has been trying to. Hold on, Ms. Dickerson.
Okay,
Somebody else. Is that Ms. Mood?
It is.
Okay.
You ready for me?
Jump in. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that we don't expand any services without the approval of the board, because as everybody's pointed out, we can't expand services without funding for it. And so I'm clear that we approve every expansion of service. If the question is, should we be aware of any exploratory conversations, I find that really might tie the hands of our staff, because we participate in a number of community organizations, and people may raise questions about, well, would it be possible to do this thing? Could the Comet do this? And so that conversation might start. And if it looks like something that we want to explore, want to pursue, all of those things show up in the executive director's report, who he's met with, those kinds of things. And then if it actually comes to some proposal for expanding services, then we get it. But I don't see how we can, or the staff may become aware of a grant that's available, and they need to look into that and see what would be involved and how that might fit before they bring that to either the board or one of the committees to start, or the board to refer it to a committee. But I don't want us to tie their hands on even having a conversation about possible new services. That I don't want to do that.
Okay, Ms. Dickerson.
I think that was the part where I was seeing, looking like the micromanagerial part comes in. I think looking at what my role is versus what the staff role is, it makes me concerned about if I have staff that includes the whole staff, that's their job. My job is to make sure that I monitor that they make sure that I get the information through the proper channels, like bringing it to the board or whatever, so that we can actually work on it and work through it. Look, I'm not going out there looking for something. That's what they get paid those handsome salaries to do. And I think to bring those things to my attention, that's where I'm going with this. Whatever the will of the board is, but the day-to-day operations, I really don't get engaged in the micromanaging part of that.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. I'm going to ask Paige, will you repeat the motion and make sure, Ms. Burgess, that we got this correct?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, but you're echoing really badly.
Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. The motion was to expand service, whether public or private, must be introduced to the CMRTA board before staff can engage in any proceedings to offer such a service.
Be approved. She changed introduced. Must be approved.
Okay.
Okay. Does everybody understand the motion? Okay. Please indicate by voting yea or nay. Anderson, no. Leak?
Yes.
Mood,
No.
Bleaton,
Yes.
Huggins. I'm assuming that's an abstention or he's off the phone. Howard? Okay. Smith?
No.
Morris?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Dickerson?
No.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion fails. It ties 4-4 and fails. Okay. Next motion. Ms. Burgess, you had something else?
I move that all attorneys retained by the CMRT be hired by the CMRT board with an explanation to the members of what service is being rendered. Now, we kind of went over that, but let's make we didn't get any clarity on that, what they're doing.
I mean, we have a contract with them. Do you need to read the contract that we voted for and approved before?
You know, the board members a lot of times don't know what the attorney is doing, even when we see them in our meetings. We don't have anything legal we're discussing, and sometimes we just spent 2 hours at a service committee meeting with an attorney there for 2 hours, and we had nothing legal to discuss.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I would like
Yes,
to
sir.
second, and I also have some comments.
Okay.
You know,
Hold on a
just-
second. So we have a motion from Mr. Burgess and a second from Dr. Morris. Okay. Dr. Morris, go ahead.
Just like at the last finance committee meeting, I know Attorney Heiser was there, and I appreciate what she does, but it certainly would have been great if I had known that she was going to be there and what she was going to discuss.
Okay. Okay. So I have
Dr.
a
Morris.
motion. Yeah. go
yes.
ahead, Ms. Dickerson.
I need to ask you a question. See?
Yes.
Okay. When you say at our last at a financial committee meeting.
Yes.
And the attorney was there, and you didn't know why she was there,
That's
or
correct.
you didn't know what. You as the chair of the committee, you didn't know that the attorney would be present at that meeting.
No, I didn't.
Is that a practice that we've been having attorneys present at all of our meetings prior to that particular meeting?
No, some of them, we have attorneys there and others we don't.
So was there a particular item on our agenda that required or did not require an attorney, or did require an attorney? That
yes,
was on the agenda?
There was an item there, and I appreciate her being there, but as I said before, if it was a policy or motion, then the ED would have notified me, and I would have notified the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna let it go. All right.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Ms. Anderson, may I bring up a clarified point?
Yeah.
Just so that the board's aware, the board did approve the hiring of Borough Foreman McNair in 2019 through an RFP process that the board asked for. In that contract that was written, it's mentioned that the attorneys do participate in our board meetings or committee meetings, especially when executive sessions occur and it requires the presence of the attorney. We pay a retainer fee of $4,000 a month, which includes attendance at all the meetings. So their participation does not cost the authority any more money. Whereas in the older contract, we were being billed on an hour-by-hour basis. So to answer the question, this is already board policy that in the procurement and contract administration policy that when an RFP is released, the board has to approve it.
Oh.
So, okay, any other discussion?
If I, excuse me, if I could just jump in and clarify that under the contract, we attend committee meetings and board meetings when requested.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any questions?
Mr. Chair, just listening to this, it seems to me that if there's an agenda item where the ED or the chair of the committee could anticipate there might be a legal question arising, then it would be, it makes sense to me that they would have somebody there ahead of time for that. Certainly if there's something on the agenda, on a published agenda that has an executive session, we'd always want to have a legal
legal advice.
One of our attorneys there.
Right.
So I think in some cases it may be a judgment call just based on the agenda on whether we could anticipate there being a legal question arising, and that if it doesn't cost additional money, it would facilitate the work of the committee to have that advice present.
Okay. Other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say I think that's exactly what we're discussing. What Leo has just said. The problem, it looks to me like it need to be a little more coordination between the ED and the committee chair. Now I have to admit he pretty much coordinates with me because I call him and ask him. But I think that's the situation right here. Do you agree?
Right. Well, no. If we're really talking about the same thing we talked about before, and I don't really know what else to do other than have an executive committee meeting where we discuss it, where we're all there, and then we agree to forward it to the committees. And then when it shows up on the committee agenda, you can't then turn around and say, well, I didn't know about it, and I'm surprised by it. I mean, you can, but I'm a little frustrated that I did everything I could to make sure everybody was in the loop, and now everybody's mad because they're saying they're not in the loop. So, in any case, if we have a motion on the table and we have a second, any further discussion?
Mr. Anderson.
I have a question.
I have one other discussion, Mr. Chair. And
okay,
that
hold
is,
on. Go ahead, Ms. Dickerson.
I've sat on this board two or three times, and the fact of the matter is, if something start to discuss in a committee meeting that wasn't sent there by the board, then we have a problem. So most of the time, I thought we resolved that problem by saying anything that's at the different committees, it has to be forwarded from this board to that particular committee for discussion. And if any of those items that have been sent are sent to those committees have the potential of needing legal advice, then I don't have a problem with that. So that's just I don't think we discussed any of those. Those things don't show up on the committee meeting without it being sent to the board, and that's what I thought.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, actually, to correct Ms. Dickerson, we changed it so things can come from the board or they can emanate from the committee. They can be put on the agenda by the committee chair, by the committee chair, or they can be,
I know
or they
the
can be
committee
sent.
chair has to do it. Yeah, I know the
But
committee
it can
chair
also
has
come,
to do it.
but it can also come from the board, so it can come from either direction.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Burgess, you were asking a question. Ms. Burgess.
Hey, Brian, I'm sorry.
You were asking something?
No, you said the same thing. I just wanted to let her know that changed.
Yeah. Okay. Did anybody else have any discussion?
I just wanted to see if we could redo the motion again to make sure I have it correct.
I have a question, Chair.
before you
Yes,
do that.
sir. Who is that? Yeah,
Yep.
who's that?
Jenkins.
Oh, hey, Mr. Jenkins.
Hey, how you doing? I guess my question is, why wouldn't you want an attorney in a meeting and something that you're making a law? Every meeting you're making a law. And you may have something to ask a question to an attorney. You do it at that particular meeting instead of tabling it and getting it at the next meeting. I don't see nothing wrong with having a attorney at a meeting. That's what the attorneys are for.
Good point. Good point.
Okay.
I think so too, because if you have a question during that meeting and the attorney's right there, they can give us the legal advice. That's the way I feel about it.
Great. Okay. So, any other discussion? Okay. Before we vote, Ms. Burgess, can you restate the motion? And
Yes.
Paige,
I
make
move
sure you
that
have
all
it right.
attorneys retained by the CMRT be hired by the CMRT board with an explanation to the members what service is being rendered. And that means that, Attorney Housen has said it right. Usually it's requested by the chair when they're present.
Okay. So, Paige, do you have the motion?
Yes, sir, I've got it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Please indicate whether you agree or disagree by saying aye. I'm sorry, and indicate your vote by saying yea or nay. Anderson, no. Leak,
Yes.
Mood,
No.
Gleaton,
Yes.
Huggins.
Abstain.
Okay. Howard. Okay. Smith,
No.
Morris,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Dickerson,
No.
the motion fails, tied 4-4. Okay, next, Ms. Burgess, anything else?
This is my last one.
Okay.
I move that any and all motions approved by the CMRT board becomes final unless it's stated in the motion to send to a committee.
Can you elaborate on what you mean, Mr. Burgess?
We send a lot of motions when 11 of us are there voting to a committee that goes from 11 to 5 members looking at, that comes back again to the same original 11 when we don't really need clarity on the motion, that the board should be able to finalize some motions.
So what are you proposing exactly? You lost me. Or can you give me an example of what you, not a real example, can you give me an illustration of what you're proposing? Just, I don't understand it exactly what you're saying.
All right, if the board votes to leave the door open during the meeting and the majority vote yes, we wouldn't have a committee to send that to. We send it to executive committee and they send it back to us and we vote yes again. So that's
Correct.
just delayed a month on something
Right.
that we should have been able to finalize.
But where do you propose that it be finalized? With the board or with the committee?
Once we approve it, that's it. Not unless it's stated to send for further evaluation to a committee.
Mr. Chair, do we have a second? Are we in the discussion?
I'll second.
No. Okay, Dr. Morris is seconding. Okay.
Okay. Here's my understanding, and probably this might be one for our lawyers to chime in. But my understanding is that when we make a motion in the meeting about an issue that's not been published as being part of our agenda, we can't take an action on that motion because it didn't get public notice. And so what happens to it is it goes to the appropriate committee, to be vetted
Right.
and then brought back for discussion when it is an official item on the board agenda.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Okay, so what are you proposing we change, Mr. Burgess?
I withdraw the motion.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any additional motions? Does anybody else have any additional motions? Okay. All right, none. Let's move on to progress reports for information only. You have those in front of you. I think the only thing in there was that had been deferred, that you may want to speak to, Dr. Morris, was the executive director
Evaluation.
committee. Yes. So did you want to?
Yeah.
You were going to give us an update, or you wanted to give us
Yes.
an update?
Yes, the assessment or the rating from board members, they are due today. And for some reason, some of the board members have not completed their rating. So I'm asking for an extension until April the 29th. We have the time built in.
Okay.
And that means that the board members know who you are. I would suggest that you please get your ratings in as soon as possible.
Yes. And on that note, I think earlier on, Mr. Burgess had asked about how we would hold the executive director accountable for a mistake that he made. This would be your opportunity to express your displeasure. So with that or any other action of the ED CEO. So, okay. Thank you, Dr. Morris. Is there anything else from progress reports that we need to talk about?
No, that's it.
Okay. Okay. Barring none, item 10, I need a motion to go into executive session for 2 items. One is the receipt of legal advice on a potential claim or other matters covered by attorney-client privilege, specifically Department of Revenue issue. And the second is an item, discussion of matters relating to a proposed location expansion or provision of services encouraging location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area. So can I get a motion to go into executive session?
I so move.
I have a motion from Ms. Mood and a second from Ms. Gleaton. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Barring none, indicate your vote by saying yea or nay. Anderson, yes. Mood or Leak?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mood was a yes, Leaks was a yes, Gleaton,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
Howard, Smith,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Dickerson,
Yes.
and I believe Mr. Huggins indicated that the second item on this, he needs to excuse himself from that discussion. So when we get to that, we'll ask him to drop off the call. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and drop off the call when we go into executive session.
Okay. Perfect. So for the record, Mr. Huggins is not going into executive session with us. Okay. You get that, Paige? Okay. Okay. We have a motion. It is carried. We are now in executive session. John and Paige, do we need to do anything?
Stay on the same line. We're turning off the public line. We're turning off the recording as we speak. I just asked that Paige drops off.
Okay, I'm dropping off now.
Okay. Are we good?
Not yet. Give me 1 minute, please.